What is up, guys? Last weekend, UFC 317 went down, and as we all know, Ilia Topuria is the new champion. So, I thought I would get on here and talk about what is next for Ilia Topuria. I feel like he's the most exciting fighter in the UFC right now. Um, and his next fight is going to be a huge fight because he's going to be defending his second belt for the first time. So on the screen here, I've got obviously Ilia Topuria, the man of the show. He's the main focus of this video. And then I've got three potential opponents. So Arman Sarukian, Paddy Pimblett, and Justin Gaethje. And I've got Dan Hooker here too because he's on the cusp of title contention. You'll see why he's in the video in a minute, but let's get on to the first slide here. So, what I'm doing, I'm ranking outcomes and like fights they could make. So you'll see. First slide here, we've got Ilia Topuria versus Justin Gaethje and Paddy Pimblett versus Arman Sarukian. Now, as you guys can see, I've got a red X next to Ilia versus Gaethje, and I've got a check next to Paddy versus Arman. Now, what this means is that I think Ilia versus Justin is a bad fight, should not happen, and I think Paddy versus Arman is a good fight, and I would like to see it happen. Now, the reason that I don't like Ilia Topuria versus Justin Gaethje is because I don't think Justin Gaethje deserves a title shot right now. He's on a one fight win streak. He got knocked out last year, and he beat Rafael Fiziev, who's like number 9 in the rankings, and he beat him on short notice, very short notice. So I don't think that's an extremely impressive win, and I think this is just such an easy fight for Ilia. I feel like he would knock Justin Gaethje out within 3 minutes. I don't want to see it. It's just not a compelling fight, and you know, Justin Gaethje, Big Rufus, he's saying that he's going to retire if he doesn't get a title shot, and Dana White said that he should just go ahead and retire. So I think that's good. That shows he's not going to get a fucking title shot. You need one more fight. And yeah, we need to shut down the Rufus Rebellion because it's not okay. But I do like Paddy versus Arman. I think that's a great number one contenders fight. They're both very tough matchups for each other, so I think this is a very compelling fight. But the reason that this might not work out, if they make that fight, is because these are the only two guys who I think should be fighting Ilia right now. As you can see, I don't think the Justin Gaethje fight is a good idea at all. So let's go to the next slide. Right here, I've got Ilia versus Paddy, which I think is good. I don't mind it. You could say Paddy needs one more win, and I would agree with you. I would say, yeah, you're probably right. He probably should get one more win, but at the same time, Arman Sarukian, he's been out for more than a year. He missed weight for his title fight against Makhachev. He didn't officially miss weight, but, Dana said he was going to miss weight. That's why he pulled out. So I could see why they don't want to give Arman a title shot. But, yeah. Ilia versus Paddy is good. It's a big fight. They've got beef. They don't like each other. And the reason I've got this red X next to Arman versus Gaethje, yet again, is just because I think this is just such an easy fight for Arman Sarukian. Like, are you guys really telling me you're going to be that interested to see Arman take Justin Gaethje down and submit him or TKO him with ground and pound in like a round and a half, maybe at most? Like, it's just not that interesting. Obviously, Gaethje can knock anybody out, but if you sit here and you tell me with a straight face that you think he's gonna knock out Arman Sarukian, I would probably just laugh at you if you told me that, because I just think it's just a little bit ridiculous. I think Arman's grappling is just levels above Justin Gaethje's. So yeah, that is why I don't want to see this, and I hope this is not the outcome we get. So far, the two outcomes we've got that I've ranked are this and this, and it's one good, one bad for both of them. So let's move on to the next outcome. I've got Ilia Topuria not fighting anybody for the time being. Now, I'm not a big fan of that. If he doesn't fight, Arman or Patty, he's going to be out for a while because that means both of them will have fights booked, whether it's against each other or against separate opponents like I've got here. Ilia will be out for a long time. And I really don't want to see that. I want to see this guy fight as much as possible because if we're being real, does Ilia Topuria strike you as a guy who's going to stick around until he's 35? No. I bet he's probably got 3, 4 fights left in the tank, and then he's going to retire on top, undefeated, rich as hell, as he should, honestly, with that kind of legacy if he goes on to do what I think he's going to do. I don't get why he wouldn't retire, but with that being the case, I want to see him fight as much as possible because he's such a generational talent. I want to see as much Ilia Topuria in the octagon as is possible. So I don't like that outcome. And the next fight we've got here, Paddy Pimblett versus Justin Gaethje. I just don't think it's a good fight, man. I know I'm a little bit of a Justin Gaethje hater just because of the way he acts. Like he's calling for a title shot off of one win. It's very silly to me. I'm not a big fan of it. Justin Gaethje's got good fights, but I don't really like him. Um, and I just think Paddy would just take him down and submit him. I just don't really want to see it, to be honest. I would like to see Gaethje fight somebody who's going to strike with him, and I don't think he should even be in title contention. If he loses one more time, he's definitely going to retire. So I want to see him fight somebody who's going to strike with him, and there's going to be a solid chance that he wins. But the UFC seems very intent on making, Paddy versus Chandler, and they're not going to give Arman a title shot. So I feel like this is probably the outcome we're going to get. They're going to do Paddy versus Gaethje, which is bad. Ilia's not going to fight anybody for the time being, which is bad. And then the third fight, Arman Tsarukyan versus Dan Hooker. I like this fight. They've got beef. Dan Hooker showed some very good takedown and grappling defense versus Mateus Gamrot. I really liked how he was using guillotines. He was landing good elbows as Gamrot was shooting takedowns. I really liked that. He looked pretty slow on the feet, but I still think he's a better striker than Arman Tsarukyan. He's got more power. He's very long. So I think he could give Arman some problems, and they don't like each other at all. Dan Hooker has, come out and said he wants to kick Arman Tsarukyan's teeth in. So I think this is good matchmaking. I'd like to see it, but the only issue is if Arman and Dan Hooker fight, we're getting Paddy versus Gaethje, which I don't like. But if we get to see Arman and Dan Hooker fight, then, I'll suck it up. I'll deal with Paddy versus Gaethje because I like Paddy anyway, and him getting a free win, I don't mind it, but I do want to see the best guys fight the best guys. So, yeah. This is a decent outcome. Still, I don't want to see it. So far, we're 0 for 3. I don't want to see any 3 of these outcomes. But let's see the next one. Okay, this one. Ilia Topuria sits out for a while, but we get Paddy Pimblett versus Arman Tsarukyan and Gaethje versus Dan Hooker. Now, this is the best outcome so far, in my opinion, because I can deal with Ilia sitting out for a while. He already sat out for a long time after the Max fight. It was like that fight happened in October, so November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June. 8 months. He was out for 8 months, so that's a pretty long time anyway. It's nothing new, so it's okay if he sits out. I would just rather not have it go that way. But Pimblett versus Tsarukyan is a great fight. They don't like each other. Arman could cause some heavy problems for Pimblett with his wrestling, I think. We saw Chandler was able to get to Paddy's back, but he's got no jiu-jitsu at all, so he was not able to get his hooks in. Arman Tsarukyan is so much better than Michael Chandler in every aspect except just pure physicality and power. And I think Paddy can also cause some issues for Arman with his jiu-jitsu. Arman is going to be in danger constantly when he shoots takedowns. We saw he almost got submitted by Charles with the guillotine in round 1. Charles had a pretty decent Darce choke in round 3. It wasn't in. Arman defended it well, but, that shows there's some openings there that Paddy could capitalize on. I think on the feet, Paddy could cause some problems too. He's going to be much taller. He's going to have a reach advantage. I think his distance management is better. I think he'll land a lot of calf kicks on Arman. I think he's going to be landing head kicks, knees up the middle. So I think it's a very interesting fight. I don't know who I'd pick right now, to be honest. I'd have to watch their fights back. But it is a great fight. Good number one contender matchup. So I'd love to see it. And with Justin Gaethje versus Dan Hooker, it's been booked already. It's a good fight. And most importantly, Justin would be fighting a striker. And I love that because it's Justin Gaethje. We don't want to see him fight a grappler. All right? We know how it's going to go. So, Justin versus Dan would be a guaranteed banger. At this point, I think I would pick Dan Hooker. Now, maybe we could say now I'm bridging into hater territory with picking Dan Hooker, but I do think Dan's reach could cause a lot of problems for Justin, and I actually think Dan Hooker could eat punches from Justin Gaethje. I think it'd be a war. I think Gaethje would be sucked back into his brawling ways, and I honestly think Dan Hooker would rock him with a long 1-2, maybe drop him. And I could see Dan Hooker getting a submission. We saw when he dropped Jalen Turner, he jumped on his back and he had a locked-in rear naked choke. I could see it going like that. Dan Hooker's very tough. He's got big power in his hands. He kicks very well. So I think he could cause some issues for Justin Gaethje. But most importantly, it'd be a good fight. This is a winnable matchup for Gaethje. Great fight for Hooker, too. So, yeah, whoever wins this would be like a title contender. So I think this is a good outcome. The only thing I don't like is Ilia Topuria, not fighting for a while, because if we're being honest, let's say Pimblett and Sarukian fight, Pimblett wins. Okay, let's say they book that fight in like October. Pimblett is probably going to be out until like April because he gets so fat. And Ilia likes to take time off anyway, so that's like my issue with this. And I don't see the winner of Hooker versus Gaethje making a quick turnaround at all. Dan Hooker's been pretty injured lately. Justin Gaethje takes a lot of time off in between fights. So, I don't think the winner of either of these fights is going to be ready quickly. I think, it's going to be 5-6 months before they get back into a training camp. So, yeah, that's my issue with this scenario. But if this ends up happening, I won't be that angry because we get two amazing fights out of it, and we get a real title contender for Ilia Topuria, which he does kind of deserve. Like, he deserves to fight the absolute best guy, so we're not looking at his resume, and we're going, oh, that he fought that guy on short notice, oh, that guy was ranked number 8, or, like, we don't want him ending up like Islam Makhachev, where 2 of his title defenses are over short notice opponents, one of them being Moicano, who terrible lately. Moicano's a great fighter, but that Beneil fight just was horrendous. So we don't want him to end up like an Islam Makhachev where he's goated, like absolutely goated, amazing resume, but there's asterisks for every fight. We don't want that for Ilia. I think at this point, he deserves to fight every opponent at their 100% best, and every opponent should be the next best guy. So, yeah. But on to the last outcome. This is what I want to see. I say they bite the bullet. They do Ilia versus Sarukian. I think Sarukian is the most deserving. He's coming off a win over Charles Oliveira. It was a long time ago, but it still happened. And it was before Ilia beat Charles. Granted, it was a split decision. I do think he could have lost that fight. He still looked very impressive in that fight. And, he missed weight for the Makhachev fight. But he proved he can make 155, weighing in as a backup for this last fight. So, he's had a training camp at the exact same time, weighed in at the exact same time as Ilia. They're going to be on the same schedule. Arman needs to fight soon. So I say they make this fight for the later part of the year, November. Maybe they could do this in MSG. I would love if they would take it to Spain, but that's not happening for some reason. It won't happen. So I wouldn't mind seeing this fight in MSG. Maybe they could make like a super card with Islam Makhachev, versus Jack and Ilia Topuria versus Sarukian. So I would love that. I think Topuria versus Sarukian is the best title fight, and I think Sarukian is a very tough challenge. So yeah, I'd love to see it. And I've got Paddy versus Gaethje with a check mark, just because if we end up getting Topuria versus Sarukian, Gaethje is the biggest name that Paddy could fight, and despite all I've said about the matchup, if Paddy cannot take Justin Gaethje down, he would probably get the shit beaten out of him. And we've got Dan Hooker versus Max Holloway, or Dustin Poirier if he wins, but he's going to retire. So if Dustin beats Max and retires, we can have Dan Hooker fight Max or Charles Oliveira, somebody like that, or Rafael Fiziev. But I think this is the best outcome because we get another title fight for Topuria this year. We get Paddy in a number one contenders fight. Granted, it's not the best one, but with Sarukian fighting Topuria, it's the next best option. And we get a sick Dan Hooker fight. So this is what I think should happen. Either this or this. One of these outcomes. But this is the best one in my opinion. But yeah, let me know, what do you guys think? Who do you think should be next for Topuria? I think they should bite the bullet, give Arman a title shot. I think he deserves the opportunity. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, and goodbye.